Prime Minister Modi was correct when he said that this is not an era of war. I believe that ending Russia's war is a moral imperative.
Prime Minister Modi, when speaking of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, stated that this is not an era of war. The U.S. Secretary of Treasury, Janet Yellen, emphasized the same during her recent visit to India. She also added that Modi's stance was the dominant view of policymakers in the backdrop of a protracted Russia-Ukraine war. Earlier, the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and the UN General Secretary, Antonio Guterres, had also supported Prime Minister Narendra Modi's stance and his advice of peace to President Putin, and had urged both sides to cease all forms of aggression. India has vowed to maintain only one position, which is that of peace. India has time and time again mentioned, on all platforms across the world, that the needs of its citizens and world peace are its top diplomatic priorities. It is because of this pro-peace attitude that India has been able to retain friendly relations with both the West and Russia during a time when the world has become increasingly polarized and divided. In his recent visit to Russia, a confident Jaishankar, the Indian foreign minister, said that India will continue to buy Russian oil, for it was advantageous to Delhi and its people.
It is our fundamental obligation to ensure that the Indian consumer has the best possible access on the most advantageous terms to international markets. And in that respect, quite honestly, we have seen that the India-Russia relationship has worked to advantage. So if it works to my advantage, I would like to keep that going.
Only days after Jaishankar's statement, in what could be called a major diplomatic Indian victory owing to its consistent pro-peace position, the U.S. Treasury Secretary said in an interview to Reuters that India could buy as much oil as it wanted from Russia, as long as it avoided using Western service providers that were bound by the G7 price caps, which keep oil prices low, but also squeeze Russian revenue from oil. The United States and its allies in the Group of 7 nations continue to take steps to prevent Russia from profiting from their oil supply by putting a cap on prices. However, this would not apply to India. Observers say that India is in position to quickly rise to prominence as a significant geopolitical and economic force. From under 2% prior to the Russia-Ukraine war, Russia's proportion of India's oil imports increased to an all-time high of 23% in September. Russia clearly appreciates India for its economy focus and its own citizen-first diplomacy.
Посмотрим на Индию. Талантливый очень народ, целеустремленный, с таким драйвом внутреннего развития. Он, конечно, добьется выдающихся результатов. Индия добьется выдающихся результатов в своем развитии. Сомнений никаких нет. И почти 1,5 миллиарда человек. Вот это потенциал.
Still heavily embroiled in the protracted war, Russia has stated its intention to leave Kherson City, the only regional capital it has taken control of since the war began in February. While some speculate that withdrawal will only be a temporary break for both sides to recover and resume fighting, there are a few optimists that do not expect the fighting in the region to resume. Leaders around the world are placing their hope in New Delhi, and many observers expect that when India assumes the G20 presidency, the war could see its final days. India has consistently been in favor of peace and in dialogue and diplomacy as its favored form of foreign policy. Now is the time for India to take its place as a global leader in this increasingly divided world.